YouTube, and we're live on Facebook.
Okay, good morning, everybody.
Good morning, Jim.
Let's call the meeting to order, and we've got a couple of changes on the printed agenda that you got. Chris Gross from Hancock Partners is not going to be here, and Nicole Gray Days, Catskill Regional Harvest is not going to be here. So let's skip right to an approval of the minutes.
Oh, well, actually, I was just gonna introduce those topics, if that's okay.
Oh, okay.
All right, so Chris Gross from Hancock Partners, what he wanted to come here for today was to discuss what they're doing down in Hancock. The Hancock Partners received a grant, I believe, for $160,000. And they're going to use that funding and hopefully some matching foundation funding to hire an economic development person to handle just the Hancock area. So with that investment in terms of economic development for their future, one of the things that Chris Gross was interested in talking about was potentially if the IDA wanted to take a second look at a piece of property that we had looked at about 2 years ago on, oh, I even forget the route, but everybody remembers that property, to see if the IDA, in conjunction with what they're doing and investing in their community, would be interested in trying to look at that parcel. And I apologize, I meant to get some background information on it together, but I don't have it now. If you recall, it's about a 10-acre parcel. It's 2 miles from the interstate. We had it checked out for contamination because there is a Superfund site to the south of the property. And we had some test pits done and everything, and there didn't seem to be anything of concern there. There were some difficulties with the property in that, you know, not really sure about the capacity of electricity, and then also the parcel is bisected by a right-of-way driveway to a personal residence behind it. And so that was a concern that it's a deeded right-of-way through it. Would we really be interested in trying to do a small industrial park with a public road going through it for residential vehicles? That might be problematic. And then there also was some disagreements over the value of the property. So Chris wanted to know if there was a way to take care of the driveway issue, if the IDA would be willing to take a second look at it. No discussions on, valuation of the property at this time, but if it was something that the IDA would consider.
How does he see his entity working with the IDA?
Basically, Sydney has John Redente as an economic development person, and grant writer, and he does some other things. But he's kind of their point person. And whenever he has a lead, he gets right in contact with us. They're thinking it would work similar. They have some ideas of what they think the position should focus on. They want a point person on the ground to help attract businesses in. And build up, try to find grants that would enable them to build up loan funds and things of that nature that we've been able to do over the last 20 years, and solicit new businesses to come into the area. And just essentially working in conjunction with Evan and I at all times.
How much was the last price on the 10 acres?
I think it was 175. We were offering in the 130 to 120, 125 to 130 range. We didn't necessarily get down to the nitty-gritty of fighting over price because there were enough outstanding issues that, at that point,
Right.
the
There were some
IDA.
drainage issues too, right?
No, not that, there was some concern that there might have been some pollution flow coming upstream, but that was proved out, that
Okay.
it didn't have an issue.
You also have a problem with there's a, I think it's a double wide, or maybe it's just
A single wide, yeah,
single wide mobile home.
there's a postage stamp rental lot right in front of the parcel,
Right.
that would have to be addressed as well.
The other concern would be if we're making this an industrial park, then we're gonna have to put a sewer plant in if we're gonna have multiple.
Well,
lots of
I think we'd be looking at light industrial. You know, so we probably wouldn't be able to service anything that needed production waste capacity. But to be honest, very few of our companies actually need that in our area.
Okay.
And it is outside the watershed, so septic system for employee bathrooms is, I don't think a significant issue.
Mhm.
Are these two discussions or proposals linked in some way?
He feels they are, that if the town of Hancock is going to try to be attracting new businesses to the area, it would be great if the IDA could support that effort by having a potential location for them to go. That's essentially the link.
We've looked at some other properties too down there.
Yeah, but nothing really stuck. This was really the most applicable for what we'd be involved with.
In a couple of years ago, right?
Yeah, it was
So-
18, I think, 17 or 18.
Is it still the best one or one that's available?
It's
Anything-
still the best one that's available. Obviously, the best one is Becton Dickinson facility, but that's not available.
Nothing else has come available.
No. They did have a, Buffalo Dental, which is the owner of the Becton Dickinson property. They had another building that they ended up tearing down. They were talking about giving to, the town or the village. That would have been a good parcel, but they've already turned that into condos or apartments or something. That's the one out behind Bisbee Lumber.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Somebody bought it and that was what talked about 3 years ago, but they haven't turned a spade of earth.
Oh, I heard that they were already,
Woodman C bought it, last I heard, I haven't seen anything move.
oh, well, Chris had led me to believe that they were already constructed.
Sounds about right.
Okay.
One thing I think we can't really lose track of is, you know, our capacity to do projects. And, we're still going through the legal process on this parcel of land in Walton.
Mhm.
Is hopefully a development project of some sort. And I just don't wanna get into a position where all of a sudden we've got too many projects to handle and not enough resources to go around.
That's why we have Evan.
That's true.
And hopefully the more we have, the more grant money we can access.
Okay. Just a note of caution, that's all.
Oh, yeah, no, I know.
Wouldn't the idea though, if this is being, we're being approached with this to take a second look, why wouldn't we take a second look and let them come in and make a full presentation?
I just, before I invited him in to do that, I just wanted to know whether it's a non-starter or whether we're willing to listen.
Always willing to.
Listen, yeah.
Okay. All right, I'll get in touch with them and we'll try to plan it for either March or April.
Okay. Did you wanna do anything on?
Yeah, it's basically for Catskill Regional Harvest, there's a couple items there. She had provided the profit and loss statement for the year for 2019, showing that they more than broke even. So there are some positive signs with that project. She has also reached out to myself and, well, through me, to Florida and Scott to see if they were willing to serve on a formal advisory board for the project, since the IDA is the tenant. And I know Florida said she would be willing. And I'm pretty sure that Scott is on board.
Yes.
And so that hasn't occurred yet. I had asked her for some information. The profit and loss statement was a base foundation for that, to be able to look at some things, and then move forward. And then in the future, there may be a request for some type of revolving line of credit type support to help the business through the tougher months. She's got a new accounting firm she's working with, that's why the P&L was so delayed, and I haven't gotten back to you guys about it yet, and why she wasn't necessarily ready to come in, because I just got this information last night, so that's kind of where we are.
Perfect. Anything else, Glenn, that you want to bring up? Okay, can I have an approval for the minutes from January 24, please?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion on the minutes? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, thank you. I have the treasurer's report, anything
No, the treasurer's report is, unless there's questions, is good as presented.
okay. And the loan report, we'll hold off and cover an executive session at the end of the meeting when we discuss the delinquent loan payments. The invoices,
Again, with the invoice and deposit detail for January, there was nothing, that was out of the ordinary, I don't think, unless there was any questions. We actually didn't have that many invoices at the beginning of January. Next month, there'll be a lot of invoices. We held some over.
then can I have a motion to approve the financial reports excluding the loan?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. The next two items on the agenda, the Delhi Rehab and Nursing and the IDA pump station project, we're going to hold them until we get to the executive session at the end. Glenn, do you want to do an update of the occupancy tax?
Sure. So basically, just what I wanted to mention is the deadline for applying for the occupancy tax grants was February 14th. We received 51 applications for requesting a total of $147,685. This is solely for the grants that are available to nonprofits and municipalities. We have $115,000 of available bed tax funding to support those requests, so there will be some cuts. In addition to that, we have another $115,000 for proposals to be submitted by the tourism promotion agent. And those were submitted at the same time, they're just not included in that 51 number. The Tourism Advisory Board will be meeting on March 10th to review those.
Is there, how much is the receipts from the bed tax grown?
Let's see, well, this year, for 2019, there was $230,000 that was brought in through the bed tax, which is what our estimate for bed tax funds was back in 2015 when we first proposed it.
Okay. So it's on track.
Yes.
You think you have a pretty high percentage of compliance?
Yeah, the treasurer's office, in my opinion, has done a good job of tracking them down. people that would be subject to the occupancy tax. This is an issue that I don't ever think you're at 100%. In talking with Otsego County when we first started this process, Dan Crowell, he basically considers 90% compliance, 100% compliance. Because at a certain point, you're spending more money chasing things than you would get from the actual collection of the tax. So I think we're nearing a point where we're,
And we're getting all the VRBO and Airbnb money too?
yes, yeah.
Not all those companies are collecting sales tax. I ran into someone that's doing it, just started up, and we went over their cover sheet, and the company that's booking them for did not collect sales tax. They collected the 2% bed tax, but they didn't collect the 8%.
Yeah, when we extended the law, was it just last year, Dennis, I believe? When we made some changes to it, and now if you are I forget the term that we used in the law, but if you are essentially a booking agent, you're required to register with the county, and you have obligations to either collect the tax or to only service properties that are collecting the tax. So,
Yeah, but that becomes difficult because the company is the one collecting the funds and then paying it to the landowner. So if they're not collecting the sales tax up front, the person's already paid the bill, and sales tax hasn't been collected, which means the landowner is now paying it out of their pocket because they didn't collect it. So that is an issue.
but you said they were collecting the occupancy tax, just not
Right.
sales tax?
Right. And when she put in her application to this company, they said to her, what do you need to collect? And she said, well, the bed tax, the 2%, that's all that was being collected, so we're straightening that out.
Okay.
This company needs to get on board and register with Delaware County, because my guess is they're probably not even registered, because Delaware County would have told them, you need to collect the 8% for sales tax. So I will get you the name of the company.
Okay, great.
So the round number, the 2% is the 230,000. 98% is what actually is coming in through these rental properties.
Well, I'm sorry, let me correct that, because this is a point I forget sometimes. The 230,000 is the net figure from the occupancy tax. By law, the treasurer's office is able to keep 10% for administration-related expenses. So the gross is actually a little higher than
About
230.
250.
Yeah.
So you could extrapolate that out, I guess. Get a calculator and figure out what was coming in through the rental of rooms.
Mm-hmm.
$4 million, right?
Still short of the 3 trillion from fishing, but pretty close. It's getting
Can we put a hook tax on there?
hook, line, and sinker.
Okay, good, thank you, Glenn. Anything else on that? Anybody? This site development projects, is that?
Yeah, so there's
Okay.
basically 3 sites, that are in some phase of development. The one is that Sydney, that I've been getting estimates for the grading. And last time, in my absence, I don't know if it was talked about in the last meeting, but I did get the estimate back if we excluded that back portion, area A, and that knocks it down to 130,000, and that's down from 190,000. So that's almost, that's from the initial, with the padding, so this is without the padding and that back portion. And the surface area of that back portion is 1 acre, which means still that developable area is about 5 acres, just over 5 acres. So we're still a pretty good sized property without that back portion. And I think we were talking about how that back portion would be good stormwater drainage anyway, so just wanna let you guys know.
And that parking lot could be made there too for the business.
Yeah, I guess that can be in the flood
Yeah.
plain?
Yeah.
Okay. It's pretty steep, so,
Although-
I mean, it'd be, you know, to get back from the parking lot up to the,
There might be an issue though with blacktopping.
Yeah, it would have to come up some from its current level,
Yeah.
but it doesn't have to come up all the way above flood level.
Right.
And I made a comment to Glenn the other day, I was kinda half kidding, but the more I thought about it, the more I got serious about it, but we own a pretty good source of fill right in the city, in that old Kmart building.
two birds, one stone.
That needs to come down
Right.
at some point. And maybe we could look for some funding source to help with the industrial park, and we could end up getting the building taken down and used as fill.
Yeah, that would be my plan, is if and when we move forward with those two projects, that we would do them together.
Combine them, yeah.
Do them two buildings have a shared wall?
Yeah.
No, not shared. They're built, the walls are built right up against each other, but they're not shared walls.
Oh.
Yeah.
Okay, so it is 2 blocks thick.
Yep.
Nice.
Mhm.
That is-
So that's,
And the Grand Union guy has no reality yet either on price,
absolutely none,
okay?
yeah. And he's, none, obviously.
Yeah. Okay, well, that's the Sydney project, and I'll definitely consider that. And the other site is the Kmart. I took Greg from code enforcement in Sydney, just to make sure that demolition is a good choice, and he said, yeah, demolition is a great choice for the old Kmart building. And we also had someone from upstate companies take a look at it. We went around the building. I went inside, which I regretted. And,
I warned you.
yeah, and we had to find the plans. Greg found the plans. Upstate is gonna look at them and get back with an estimate, as soon as we can look at those. There's some, we might be missing something. I'm not really sure, and the plans that I have here at Sydney are the original huge plans. I don't know if there's anything digital at the county that I could, okay, the whole Grand Union. Okay, so that's, you know, it's old, and that's what we're working with. So we may have to get a survey done, not sure, we'll see, before we can have a demolition estimate, if that's true. And then the other one is the Delhi property, RFP is out for that. The deadline for RFPs is about 1 month from now. So far, only anecdotal interest. Looking at the website analytics, I've had 10 unique visitors read the RFP, you know, take that to, yeah, I was another one, so, you know,
So that makes 8.
yeah. But I have talked about 2 possible projects, but nobody's reached out for me for help with the proposal. And looking at the proposal, they'd probably be asking more questions about it, so I don't know if anybody's actually started to fill it out. Any questions on any of those?
Oh, one other thing I'd just like to tie into that, and I haven't had a chance to talk to Evan about this. Yesterday I was over meeting with John Huff, and the village is in the stage of doing some flood mitigation work with some grant funding there. John had been visited by John Redente and the engineering company or planning company that is doing some of that. And John just expressed some concern about fixing flood issues in one location, potentially making things worse in the industrial park. And he also mentioned the idea of us filling in the lot right next door, that has some concern for him as well. And so if and when we do move forward with the project, one of the things I told him, and we will have to do it, is that we'll be looking at the impact on what building up that area, what flooding impact that could conceivably have on the area and specifically him. And he brought up that in the last flood, it was really just the top corner of the industrial park, basically him and Tri-Town News building where there was water. And Tri-Town had like 2 inches, whereas John had 20. So that top part of the industrial park must just be a little bit depressed more than the rest of the park. The rest of the park didn't have any. So just something that we need to be cognizant about as we're doing anything is that we don't wanna make things worse. And maybe if we can tie something in with what the village is doing, you know, that'll work. So we'll have to, we should probably call up John and set up a meeting.
Okay, anything else on that? All right, thank you. Next issue is Beaver Mountain Log Homes. We have a loan request for $68,000.
Okay, so Beaver Mountain Log Homes, in deposit, you have oh, I've got the wrong one, sorry, that's later on, that's a surprise.
You know how I like that.
I know, I can see you voting yes already. So, Beaver Mountain Log Homes, in deposit, they're looking at a project to fix their roof and also purchase some new equipment. Their roof failed in 2017, partially collapsed. They did a Band-Aid job for reasons that we can, I guess, will allude to if not discuss later. So they did a Band-Aid job, now it's time, they have to do the full thing. And then also to purchase a new saw that will allow them to more efficiently produce some of the log finishing that they do, and specifically as it relates to the timber, the hybrid timber framing. You know, I don't know if everybody's aware. Beaver Mountain Log Homes, they build log homes. Very high-end log homes, very expensive. Just the shell is typically $200,000. That doesn't include any labor, any finishing, anything. Land, septic, nothing. Yeah, it's all separate. High-end market, but they're also getting into this hybrid timber framing, where essentially it's a stick-built home, but at certain points of the process, they're using logs, especially where they'll be visible. You know, so
As a
it's
facade.
essentially a timber frame on the facade, and then also maybe some of the support interior beams that are then gonna remain exposed would be logs, and then there'll be some stuff that's essentially just for show that are logs. Which is roughly half the cost of a pure log home, sometimes even lower. And they just feel it expands their market, you know, from solely high-end more into just middle market also. So, you know, I had put a bunch of things in my write-up in terms of their sales. They did have some issues in 2017 from the result of loss of a key salesperson. They've been slowly recovering from that. Their revenues are approaching what they were. Their 2019 revenues were approaching what they were, and in 2020, they're projecting that they'll essentially be nearing where they were before. During that whole process of the loss of the salesperson, being hit with the roof, they had to really rethink their business, and it seems like they've put in place a lot of changes to how they manage their projects, and the efficiency with which they are producing their log homes. They are down on employment, but basically they consider it right-sized, not lost employment. And so, overall, they've been profitable. I think it's a good project. You know, there is the potential for a new full-time job that would be more in the design phase, so it would most likely be a higher paying job as, you know, they continue to rebuild from, you know, their issues in 2017. The collateral would be a piece of equipment. Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't have any information on that. The piece of equipment that they are offering, there are some pictures here, if you wanna see it, I'll pass them around. But it has a value, they say it has a value of around $250,000. They couldn't find, you know, we were looking on all those websites, X Factory and everything like that sell used equipment. The closest they could come to was a double head planer that was being sold for $215,000. This is a 6-head planer. So, you know, there's some evidence that it's more than, you know, covering the collateral for our loan. That's kind of what I have, unless there's questions.
What's your profit?
What's that?
What is your profit?
They were, they showed it, let's see, how do I want to put this? Basically 10% profit off of gross sales, I'll say it that way. And the gross sales figure is in the write-up,
Thank you.
yeah.
Gwen, in a previous life, I dealt with them for a long time as a customer. And I always was very impressed with the management of the company. I think they did a fine job of running it. And I had a great relationship with them, and everything went very smooth. And I just think that they're a strong company. They had a downturn.
Yeah, they had one bad year.
That'll happen.
Yeah, and I think other than that, they've.
Yeah, I think they've got strong management, good management, and I think they're fine.
Who's their current bank?
I don't know, I didn't ask.
Yeah, it's not in the financials.
Yeah.
Surprising that the current bank is not willing to deal with this, and that brings up a whole bunch of questions.
Well, I mean, we did have their balance sheet that was you know, I know the balance sheet and the tax returns is, you know, and they also did have a balance sheet in their 2019 financials. I mean, there was nothing there that
Right.
stuck out to me that was
Right.
problematic.
So is the line of credit getting reviewed?
Well, I'm sorry, yeah, I probably should have mentioned this right at the beginning. When this first started, they reached out to Evan solely for the $7,500 related to the SAW through our micro program.
Okay.
So we kind of started without going through that process of, you know, what other involvement is there. And then just over like a 2-week period, it was like, you know, look, I guess it got warm for that very short spell, and it started raining inside their building, and it was like, no, it's
We
now.
need to do this, right?
Yeah, so I think that's how it morphed out, and that's probably
Right.
why we never looked into that
So
side
with
of
the line of
things.
credit and the long-term debt, we have to make sure that this isn't already pledged collateral.
It's not, yep.
That's surprising that it's not caught in the all-inclusive.
Well, yeah,
part.
that's true. They say it's not, but what they know is collateral and what isn't. Yeah, so I will double
All
check
now
on that.
existing and hereafter acquired clause.
Yeah, that's a good clause, yes.
It looks like their bank is MBT.
That was my guess.
You know, and then one thing I did include in my write-up, and I don't know, it made me feel a little bit better. You know, they were able to pay off a significant amount of their line of credit through cash flow last year, while still claiming a profit.
Mhm.
I guess we're wondering who they paid it to.
Yes.
Was the existing line of credit with a bank, or was it with the stockholders?
Right. We do want stockholder debt subordinated to us,
Mhm.
that we would be paid before they would be.
And
Okay.
the balance sheet at the top says net sales, doesn't say gross sales. So what got taken out of the gross before it hit the balance sheet that says draft on it?
I don't know, I'd wanna look at that.
So then the question becomes, if that is caught up in the general collateral filing, what else do they have?
What
And
I
we'll
was
have to
told by
ask.
Drew is that all their equipment is free and clear. We just settled on one big piece to make it easy. But,
When you run the UCC search, you'll find out.
right. Which I should have done before this, I've been doing that and I didn't.
Well, I'll move it as presented, as long as what's presented.
As long as the collateral is free?
Correct.
Second.
For a second. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Were you
Are
a
you
yes
gonna
or you were
inquire
just
about-
there?
Are you gonna inquire about the net sales as opposed to the gross sales?
Yes,
You want
I'm
to take it
going
out?
to, the things that I am going to confirm are the collateral issue, their primary bank, and what the net revenue refers to on
Right.
their
What was the difference between
2019.
gross and the net and where that money went?
Yeah.
I would speculate that it is refunds of some small amount.
So,
May even be a typo.
Okay, any other old or new business? Okay, then can I have a motion to go into executive session to?
Oh, I'm sorry, I was writing notes down. Yeah, I do have several things.
Go.
Okay, sorry, I just want to make a note of this. Okay,
Camera's moving along.
all right, so, well, that one's not important. Just a FYI, we're in the middle of our audit, everything's going well. They were in yesterday and the day before, everything seems fine.
Well, wait a minute, audit or accountant firm coming in?
Audit.
Oh, okay.
Well, yeah, Manzanero, Tony.
Right. That's
Yeah,
not really an audit.
Well,
That's the year-end financial statement.
yes, our year-end financial
Okay.
statements, okay. He calls it an audit.
It may be an audited financial statement.
Okay. Our audited financial statements are,
But it's-
are underway.
It's not someone from Albany coming down to check on you.
No,
Right,
no,
right.
we don't want that.
Right.
Okay, so I don't know if I had mentioned this at the last meeting, Clark Companies is tied into the pipeline.
Yes, you did.
Everything is fine, it's working fine now, okay, so then I don't need to
They
mention
had
that.
issues when they first hooked up, though, didn't they?
Yeah, the lateral had separated, there was a joint, and they feel, that the joint was, the valve at the joint was improperly sized or just the wrong one. They switched it out and everything's been fine since. Pilot agreements, we just filed, the transfer documents to transfer, Huff Ice Cream back onto the tax rolls. That was a pilot agreement that we inherited from the Village of Sydney. So that's done, and was filed yesterday. And also, for Masterson Properties, for their second project, which they called the North Project, which is the building across the street. That was turned back to the tax rolls as well.
Good.
Then lastly, I just this week received a request from Shepherd Repair to be named a agent for the IDA for the work that is going on the building that we own and are leasing to him. He has about 50, no, what did we come down to? About $60,000 of future expenditures that are related to construction materials and other real property that will be affixed to the building, and would like to be denoted as an agent for the IDA, so he would be eligible for sales tax exemption on those materials. It would be a rough figure of around $4,800 in savings. That would have to be a resolution.
Have a motion for that?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Did you get to test drive the Z1, ZR1?
Only if things go bad. That'll come up under the LDC.
Okay,
I have it, it's fine.
good enough for me.
Okay, can we have a motion to go into, is that it?
Yep, that's it for me.
Can we have a motion to go into executive session, please?
So moved.
Or do we have to,
State the reason.
for two contractual related items with, I don't believe any action to be taken. But I don't know if we have to state that or not.
Discussion of the past due
Yes,
loan payments.
yep.
Okay.
You need a motion in a second.
A second, please.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Video is now gone, is audio gone?
Now it is. Are you ready for